Hey folks, Garrett Monroe here for Design Thinking at Hiram College. In this short video, I'm going to offer an introduction to the Ideate phase, and then we're going to look at some surface level ways or introductory ways of doing brainstorming, both by yourself and then also preparing to do brainstorming with a group. So there's some activities that are associated with this video in the online module. Make sure you preview those before finishing this section of the module. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen, and you can see my slides here. So right now we're in this wonderful moment where we're transitioning between the two first phases of the design thinking process, from what is or empathize into what if, or ideation, which means to just generate ideas. So it's a really cool moment. Here's our visualization as we're sort of in this exploratory phase, which maybe is kind of new to people, the ways in which we've done exploration of a topic, in which we've walked in the shoes of our customers or stakeholders, who've done some exercises, kind of almost exhaustive or extensive exercises beyond what most people do in these sorts of problem-solving situations. We've really held off on thinking about solutions to these problems. We've simply been trying to explore and map and think about experiences of people, especially emotional experiences. And we've also tied that in with some secondary research. We've mapped those out as journey maps and other sorts of ways of presenting them. Now we're moving into this what if phase. And the only way in which this what if phase is successful is if we have a good what is phase. A lot of people embark on brainstorming and it doesn't go well, doesn't really end anywhere fruitfully. And that's because a lot of the basic assumptions they're making don't have a great grounding in reality. So this phase, however, as visualized by this graphic, is very much about divergent thinking. So radically widening our lens, radically widening our scope of thinking to try to get outside the box, as it were, outside the status quo or the normal ways of thinking about problems. It's harder than it actually sounds. However, design thinking has developed a lot of different, and other design thinking like exercises have developed a lot of tools and processes, which we'll be going over in this course, to kind of force or invite you into thinking outside of the norm. And so that's what this phase is all about. A lot of people really enjoy this, and a lot of people have also kind of have negative connotations from past experiences not being successful or fun in brainstorming. So let's get into a little bit of how to do some introductory brainstorming, some principles of that. By the end, however, of this what if phase, we'll be refining some of these ideas down into ones that might fit our situation. So we'll be developing concept parameters for solutions that fit our particular design challenge. All right, so brainstorming. Here are some reasons why. You probably all had some experience doing brainstorming. You've probably done it in high school and elsewhere in clubs and so forth, maybe even in college and some other areas, or maybe in a workplace. Most of the time, there's sort of four reasons people really hate brainstorming. The problems are poorly framed. And of course, here we're looking at solutions. So doing something like defining the problem, framing the problem well is a lot of the work we've done already in our design brief and what is phase. A good solution is good trigger questions. Through this presentation, we'll be generating some trigger questions based on our Empathize work. The usual suspects say the usual things. This is when you've got individuals or characters who are dominating a conversation. Maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a manager, maybe it's a leader, maybe it's just a particular kind of noisy person who dominates a conversation and doesn't leave room for other people to offer insight or input. And there's ways in which you can avoid this sort of domineering dynamic within brainstorming groups. You can keep groups small, you can keep groups diverse, and you can set ground rules. Brainstorms turn into critiques. This is probably the most common one. People start criticizing or throwing out ideas, making people feel judged, saying an idea is invalid, laughing, all these sorts of ways in which people participating or offering ideas are shut down or judged or thrown out. And so the way to avoid this, and of course that creates a negative cycle of people not wanting to put out ideas because they're feeling criticized or judged. The idea is to enforce the rules, and the rules we set up are very simple. The most important one is no judgment. Like every idea is good here. Sometimes the crazier ideas piggyback or lead to different ideas or kind of branching ideas that get to really interesting things. So bad ideas, good ideas, crazy ideas, all these ideas are encouraged. More. That's what we want. And that's the sort of microculture we need to cultivate when doing ideation and doing brainstorming. Remember, radically kind of divergent thinking. Brainstorming makes more work and ideas will go nowhere anyway. So people sometimes think it's a waste of time. This isn't going to go anywhere. When we do it as part of the holistic design thinking process, that is not the case. In fact, this is bread and butter. This is heart and soul of what we're doing. So this work really matters. And so again, it is down to the group to set and enforce good rules, good norms for generating ideas in this way. And again, it only works when it's built off the foundation of good empathetic research, good secondary research in our initial phase. So here's some general ground rules for brainstorming, and we've entitled it the Zen of Brainstorming, and this is indeed from our book Designing for Growth. So we want to have the right people in the brainstorming groups, small groups, just a handful of people. Too many, and it's just not everybody can participate. Too few, and there isn't quite enough diversity to kind of take off to get the exhaustive list we're after. We want diverse groups and depoliticized. So we don't want to have agendas, workplace or otherwise, frittering their way into our brainstorming process. We don't want animosities. We don't want little dramas. We don't want power plays unfolding in the brainstorming space. And so that might be strategic about avoiding certain individuals or certain settings. We want to make sure we're responding to the right challenge. That is, we've agreed upon a design brief, or we've all done enough groundwork to understand the situation we're discussing. The right mindset. People need to understand this is about building up, building off of ideas, not tearing down. Again, no judgment, no critique. The more ideas, the better. It's simply fuel for creative processing, for creative generation. One voice at a time. People don't want to feel plowed over. We need a good facilitator, somebody who's in charge of enforcing this sort of stuff. No filibusters. That means nobody can hijack, get really into one big idea. They say, oh, I've had the best idea. Let me talk about this ad nauseum, extensively. So really just 30 seconds per idea. Save it, put a pin in it, and we'll come back to it. Show your work. Here, visualize, right? This is where we're using sticky notes. This is where we're using Sharpies. This is where we're, trying to turn complex ideas into express them simply just with a simple visualization or sketch. You might, be writing words. You might be drawing visualizations. Again, withhold judgment. Learn ideas of others. Absolutely. Have fun. It's not about claiming responsibility for the best idea. It's not about kind of showing off how smart or creative you are. This is why having the right team and doing good teamwork beforehand, team formation, really matters. The right empathy. We want to be associating, putting ourselves in the shoes of the end users, customer empathy. And the classic way of doing a lot of judgment or critique is to, again, be thinking about the business, thinking about the institutional perspective, which is it going to make money? Is it going to be feasible? We're not doing that right now. We're taking an end user perspective. Right inspiration. We're taking inspiration from our journey maps. We're taking inspiration from our interviews. We're taking inspiration from our visualizations and our secondary research. Of course, right stimulus. We need the trigger questions, which we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to be framing it based on the design brief we've developed. Of course, we want to facilitate it well. We want it to be paced. We want, so it's not all, this is really important. We go back and forth between individuals generating questions or ideas maybe spending a couple minutes here where it's all quiet in the room, individuals are working, and then we come back and bring the whole group together. We ping pong back and forth between these different ways to generate increasing innovation and creativity of ideas. And of course, finally, right follow-up. We begin, after generating all these ideas, we don't just leave it there, but we begin sorting and clustering the ideas we've generated, maybe as sticky notes, and we're moving them into clouds and moving into the maps. And so this is all really important for brainstorming. So one important tool in the brainstorming process is called trigger questions. Trigger questions can be used in a variety of settings, but basically they're questions you put to a group or you put to yourself. You can do some of this work by yourself. And they're based on insights we've had from the what is phase, from the empathize phase. So they've really been inspired from your empathize phase work. And a common sort of group experience our activity we do to generate trigger questions is to do what we call the gallery walk. Now, we can't do this because we're not together in person, but you can do this by visiting each other's e-portfolios. So normally the gallery walk is a way of people taking a moment. It's a collaborative understanding and extension process that has individuals from the team review their empathize work, such as interviews and journey maps, and list the most poignant ideas and observations and findings. Maybe it's just 3, 4, 5 big insights or big ideas. What was a common thing, across your interviews or journey maps that really popped out? Maybe it was a pain point in the journey map. Maybe it was a high point, an emotional high through the interviews or so forth. Choose 1 to 2 or however many you'd like to visualize as a sketch or as a storyboard. Post on the wall outside class. In this case, you're putting them on your e-portfolio, and then go through and walk and leave a comment or be inspired. Take notes on your teammates' work. Here we're voting. You don't have to vote in this case. And create a list of themes or patterns you're observing from the class as a whole. And then we turn these findings into a map for brainstorming questions. So basically, from those questions, you can turn them around and turn them into what we call trigger questions. So here's an example of what we did for last year when we were doing innovation based on the dining hall. They were looking at the visualizations people put together, and they created questions such as, how can dining ware be a part of an innovation? How can the dining hall staff be a part of the solution? So they're just framing questions based on different groups or components of the problem as illustrated, from the pieces to the individuals. How about the furniture and the decor? How about other people within the institution? So here with restaurants, right, you might be thinking about different parts, moving parts, both staff and people, and also physical, such as furniture and other ways. Wider scoping the community and framing those as individual questions. And then we identify, big questions that might spark other responses. So how can we innovate with mobile technology in the dining hall? That might be a trigger question. How can we innovate with mobile technology in cold weather outdoor dining? Then that sparks a whole round of brainstorming. Here's another one from last year. How can student clubs, organizations, and leadership be a part of an innovation? And so you might, reframe this for our challenge this year as part of your trigger questions. So the exercise is outlined on the course page. You're to generate a number of these trigger questions and submit them. And there's no right or wrong way of doing this, but they should be inspired from, again, your empathize work. And we're going to be pulling on those to do brainstorming exercises. Another excellent activity for brainstorming is called change perspectives. And basically, change perspectives brainstorming exercise invites you to do some role playing. So you generate a list of 5 people or institutions that are kind of well known or commonly known. And so you might imagine a diverse list of who would think about your topic in a new way. So what if Disney was trying to, and you think about Disney World, for instance, what if Disney was trying to innovate with cold weather outdoor dining, or whatever your topic is? What about Apple? How would they do things? or Oprah, or Buddha, or Chipotle, or Uber, a middle school teacher. So you simply list a bunch of different, institutions or companies or people. Take the perspective on from that role, and then those become trigger questions. Essentially, a whole round of brainstorming is based on this. So you are to bring a list of these also to tomorrow, and then we might you could input these as trigger questions, and we might be doing rounds based on that. So we'll be kind of pulling from the group. So that is it for this brief introduction into ideation. You're going to proceed with this module, having completed generating some trigger questions. Take some time with it. This might involve doing a virtual gallery walk and taking notes, and then submitting them via the course page. And then you'll move on to the mind mapping exercises and so forth in the module. I'll see you in the live sessions. Thank you very much.